This is a fictional romantic story, created for entertainment purposes only. For 11 months, I was nobody. The quiet woman in the corner office who filed papers and answered phones. I had mastered the art of disappearing in plain sight. But then Dominic Valetti, the most feared man in Manhattan, started noticing the way his men watched me. And when he finally demanded to know why every man in his organization wanted me, my answer set something in motion that neither of us could stop. What I didn't understand then was that catching the attention of a man like Dominic would be far more dangerous than all those months of being invisible. Before we get into this story, I need a small favor. We're working toward building an incredible community here, and every single subscription helps us grow. If you love stories about complicated love, about two people finding each other against impossible odds, please hit that subscribe button right now. And I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from today? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love knowing where this community is spread across the globe. It makes every story feel like a conversation between friends. Now, let me take you back to where everything began. I learned young that the quietest person in the room is often the safest. The Manhattan skyline burned orange and gold through the massive windows of Valetti Enterprises. 42 floors above the chaos of the city, everything felt suspended in time. The office was all polished marble and dark oak, crystal decanters on antique cabinets, the kind of wealth that had been accumulated over generations, some of it legally, most of it not. I had been working here for 11 months. 11 months of arriving early, leaving late, speaking only when spoken to. Isabella Chen, the invisible assistant, that was exactly how I wanted it. The afternoon sun slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the oriental rugs. I was sorting through correspondence when Vincent Morty appeared at my desk for the 4th time that week. Expensive watch, predatory smile, the kind of confidence that came from never hearing the word no. Isabella, he leaned against my desk too close. You look stunning today. That dress is perfect on you. I didn't look up from my work. Thank you, Mr. Morty. Vincent, please, we're past formalities, aren't we? He lowered his voice. Let me take you to dinner tonight. There's this place in Tribeca, very exclusive. You'd love it. I appreciate the offer, but I don't socialize with colleagues. He studied me, searching for a crack in my armor, playing hard to get. Not playing anything. I finally met his eyes, keeping my expression neutral. I'm just not interested. Something flickered across his face, annoyance maybe or wounded pride. You're lost, sweetheart. He walked away, and I exhaled slowly. This had been happening more frequently lately. Vincent with his dinner invitations. Tommy Russo from the security team, always finding reasons to patrol near my desk. Even Mr. Castellano, the married attorney who handled the legitimate business dealings, had suggested drinks after work. I turned them all down the same way, politely, firmly, without explanation. What none of them understood was that I wasn't playing a game. I wasn't being coy or waiting for the right offer. I simply had no interest in becoming entangled with anyone in this organization. I had seen what happened to women who got too close to men like these. They became possessions, leverage, liabilities. I intended to remain none of those things. The door to the corner office opened, and the air in the room shifted. Dominic Valetti commanded attention the way gravity commanded falling. 6'3", built like he'd been carved from stone and shadow. His suits cost more than most people's cars, tailored perfectly to showcase broad shoulders and the lean, powerful build underneath. Dark hair, darker eyes, a jaw that could have been cut from marble. He was devastatingly handsome in that dangerous way. The kind of handsome that made women forget common sense and men forget to breathe. His presence rolled through the office like a wave. Conversations hushed, postures straightened. Everyone suddenly found something urgent to focus on. His gaze swept the room, and for one heartbeat it landed on me. Then moved on. That was normal. To Dominic Valetti, I was furniture, a necessary piece of equipment that happened to have a pulse. Isabella, the Morrison contracts. His voice was smoke and gravel. the kind that issued commands and expected immediate compliance. Right away, Mr. Valetti. I rose, collected the file from my cabinet, and walked into his office. The space was enormous, all dark wood and leather, with windows that showcased Manhattan like it was his personal kingdom. Because, in many ways, it was. I handed him the file. Our fingers didn't touch. They never did. Thank you, he paused, flipping through the first few pages. Vincent was at your desk again. Not a question. It's nothing I can't handle, sir. He looked up then, really looked, and something in his expression made my pulse quicken. If any of them cross a line, you tell me. Immediately. I'm fine, Mr. Valetti, truly. He studied me for a long moment, those dark eyes seeing more than I wanted them to. You're always fine. 11 months and you're always perfectly fine. Never a complaint, never a request, never a single personal conversation. I wasn't sure how to respond to that, so I didn't. That will be all, he said finally. I returned to my desk, heart beating faster than it should have been. Dominic Valetti had noticed something about me. In 11 months of calculated invisibility, that was the most personal observation he'd ever made. I wasn't sure whether to be flattered or terrified. The evening light painted Manhattan in shades of amber and rose as the office began to empty. I always waited until most people had left before packing up. Fewer interactions, fewer opportunities for unwanted attention. I was gathering my things when Tommy Russo appeared, blocking my path to the elevator. Let me walk you to your car, Isabella. His smile didn't reach his eyes. A woman like you shouldn't be walking alone after dark. Thank you, but I'm fine. I insist, he stepped closer. Come on, one dinner, one drink, what's the harm? The elevator doors opened behind him. I moved to step around him. Tommy, just give me a chance. His hand closed around my arm, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to communicate intent. You never give anyone a chance. She said she's fine. The voice came from the elevator, cold as winter steel. Dominic Valetti stood in the doorway, jacket unbuttoned, revealing the shoulder holster he wore as naturally as other men wore ties. His expression was calm, but his eyes were lethal. Tommy's hand dropped from my arm like I was on fire. Boss, You were just leaving. Dominic's voice was quiet, which somehow made it more threatening. Weren't you? Yes, sir, absolutely. Good night, Mr. Valetti, Isabella. Tommy retreated so quickly, he nearly tripped over his own feet. Dominic held the elevator door, his gaze fixed on me. Coming. I stepped inside. The doors closed, sealing us in together. The silence was thick, charged with something I couldn't name. His cologne surrounded me, expensive, masculine, with an undertone of something darker. I was acutely aware of how small the space was, how close he stood, the controlled power radiating from his body. You don't need to protect me, I said quietly. I can handle men like Tommy. I'm sure you can. His voice was calm. But you shouldn't have to, not here. 20 floors of silence. The numbers ticked down on the display. Why do you work here? He asked suddenly. I glanced at him, surprised. Excuse me. This job, you're intelligent. I've seen how quickly you process information, how efficiently you handle complex tasks. You could work anywhere. Corporate offices, law firms, anywhere you wanted. Why here? The elevator continued its descent. The compensation is excellent, I said carefully, and I know how to mind my own business. Most people don't last in this environment. The ones who don't belong, they crack, they ask questions, get nervous, make mistakes. He turned to face me fully. But you're perfectly composed every single day, like you were built for this world. Or like I've learned how to survive in worlds I don't belong to. The elevator reached the parking garage. Harsh fluorescent lights replaced the warm glow of the office. Everything down here felt like a noir film, all shadows and concrete and the echo of distant footsteps. The doors opened. I stepped out. Isabella. I turned. Dominic stood in the elevator doorway. Backlit and beautiful and terrifying. They look at you because you're the only genuine thing in this entire building, he said quietly. Everyone else is performing, playing roles, trying to be what they think they should be, but you're simply yourself. That kind of authenticity is rare. He paused, and apparently irresistible. The doors closed before I could respond. I stood alone in the concrete cavern of the parking garage, my heart pounding, my thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. Dominic Valetti had seen me, actually seen me. I drove through Manhattan as twilight surrendered to darkness. The city transformed around me, lights flickering on in countless windows, neon signs blooming to life, the streets filling with people chasing their own stories. Somewhere in this urban wilderness, Dominic Valetti was thinking about me the same way I was thinking about him. For 11 months, I had been invisible by design, safe in my silence, protected by my insignificance. But tonight, the most dangerous man in New York had looked at me like I was visible, like I mattered. And I genuinely didn't know if that thrilled me or terrified me more. The next morning arrived wrapped in fog, the Manhattan skyline barely visible through the haze. Everything felt muted, suspended, like the city itself was holding its breath. I arrived at 7:15, earlier than usual, made coffee in the executive kitchen, settled at my desk. But my hands trembled as I worked, because I knew he was just beyond that mahogany door, and something fundamental had shifted between us. The morning passed in unusual quiet. Vincent didn't approach my desk once. Tommy was nowhere to be seen. Even Mr. Castellano sent his documents electronically rather than hand-delivering them as he usually did. Word had clearly spread. Dominic Valetti had intervened on my behalf. In this world, that meant everything. At 10:30, his office door opened. "Isabella, my office, please." My stomach dropped. In 11 months, he had never summoned me for a private meeting. I walked into his domain, closing the door behind me. His office felt different today, more intimate, despite its size. Morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes floating in the air like tiny universes. He stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline. "Sit," he said. I settled into one of the leather chairs, spine straight, hands folded in my lap. "The men won't bother you anymore. I made that explicitly clear this morning." "You didn't have to do that." "Yes," he turned to face me. "I did. You work for me. That means you're under my protection." "I don't need." "Everyone needs protection, Isabella. Even people who are very good at pretending they don't." He moved to his desk, leaning against it with casual grace. Even in stillness, he radiated authority. "Tell me something," he said. "Why do you reject them? Vincent, Tommy, all of them. They offer you everything women typically want: money, status, attention. Why do you refuse?" "Because they look at me like I'm something to be acquired." I kept my voice steady. "A prize, a possession. I'm not interested in being anyone's trophy." His eyebrow rose slightly. "And if someone looked at you differently?" The question hung between us, heavy with implication. "That would depend entirely on who was looking." The corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. "You're direct, I appreciate that. Lies require too much energy. Like staying invisible. Like staying alive." Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or respect. "You're far more perceptive than I gave you credit for." He pushed off the desk, moving closer. "Do you know what I realized last night?" I shook my head. "In 11 months, I never actually looked at you. I saw the assistant, the employee, the woman at the desk who handled tasks efficiently, but I never saw you." He stopped directly in front of my chair, close enough that I could see the golden flecks in his dark eyes. Now I can't seem to stop. "You're my employer." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I'm aware. This is highly inappropriate." "Also aware." He crouched down, bringing himself to my eye level. This close, I could see the small scar at his hairline, the way his jaw tensed with controlled restraint. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly, "and I will. Tell me this is entirely in my imagination and I'll walk away. Nothing will change. And if I don't tell you to stop, then everything changes. My breath caught. I'm not your trophy either. If something happens here, I'm not just another possession for your collection. I know. And I won't be your secret. I'm not something to be hidden away and ashamed of. His hand reached up, fingers barely grazing my cheek. The contact sent electricity coursing through my entire body. Isabella, he murmured, I couldn't be ashamed of you if I tried. Why would I want to hide you? Because powerful men don't do relationships. They do arrangements. You think you know what kind of man I am. I looked at him, really looked, past the expensive suit and dangerous reputation and carefully constructed walls. I think you're exhausted from playing roles. I think you're lonely in rooms full of people. And I think you're looking at me because I'm the only person who isn't looking back at you with fear or greed or calculation. Something raw flashed across his face, vulnerability quickly masked. You see too much, he whispered. You asked me to look. His thumb traced my cheekbone, gentle as a whisper. Have dinner with me tonight. That's not a good idea. Almost certainly not. Say yes anyway. Every rational part of my brain screamed warnings. He was my boss. He was dangerous. This could only end in disaster. But rational thinking had kept me invisible for too long. One dinner, I heard myself say, but I choose the location, somewhere public, somewhere normal. Done. His smile was devastating, though I'm accustomed to controlling everything. Then consider this an exercise in letting go. You have no idea what you're starting, Isabella Chen. I met his eyes, letting him see my strength. Neither do you, Dominic Valetti. I chose a small family restaurant in Brooklyn. Red and white checkered tablecloths, candles in old wine bottles, the smell of garlic and fresh bread. Nothing fancy. Somewhere he couldn't be the king, just a man. He arrived exactly on time, and every head in the restaurant turned. Dark jeans, charcoal Henley stretched across his chest, leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His hair was slightly disheveled, and without the formal suits and intimidating office, he looked almost approachable. Almost. You look beautiful, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. You look different. Bad different. Just human. He smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. I'm going to take that as a compliment. Outside the window, Brooklyn sprawled in all its chaotic glory. Fire escapes and brownstones, street vendors and families walking dogs. Real life happening all around us. We ordered wine, we ordered pasta, and we talked. Not about business, not about the organization, about everything else. He told me he restored classic cars on weekends, the only time his mind went quiet. That he'd wanted to be an architect before his family's legacy claimed him. That he still sketched buildings sometimes, late at night, designing structures that would never exist. I told him about growing up in San Francisco, about my grandmother who taught me that silence could be armor, about my dream of someday traveling to every continent. You've never left the country, he asked, surprised. Never had the money, or the time, or anyone to go with. I've been everywhere, he said quietly, and felt alone in every place. The candle between us flickered, casting dancing shadows across his face. Why do you stay in this life, I asked, if you hate it so much? Duty, legacy, the same reasons everyone stays trapped in situations they didn't choose. He swirled his wine. And because leaving would mean betraying the people who depend on me. This world doesn't allow retirement. That sounds like a prison. It is, he met my eyes. But tonight, sitting here with you, it feels less like one. Halfway through our entrees, his phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. Answer it, I said gently. I understand. He looked at me like I had just handed him something precious. The call was brief and coded, a situation requiring his immediate attention. His jaw tightened as he listened. I have to go, he said, frustration evident. I'm sorry. It's fine, really. It's not fine, but I promise this isn't finished, just postponed. He stood, dropped several $100s on the table, then cupped my face and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Gentle, almost reverent. I'll make this up to you. Then he was gone, disappearing into the Brooklyn night. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Are you home? His voice was rough, strained. Just got in. Is everything okay? The situation is handled, but I couldn't go home without. He paused. I'm outside your building. My heart stopped. What? I know I shouldn't be here. I know this is crossing lines. But I couldn't stop thinking about you, and the idea of going home to an empty penthouse instead of finishing our evening was unbearable. I looked out my window. A black car was parked across the street. Can I come up? He asked. Every warning bell in my head went off. This was a threshold we couldn't uncross. Third floor, I heard myself say. Apartment 3B. When I opened the door, Dominic Valetti filled my doorway like he was meant to be there. Hi, I said. Hi, he stepped inside, his presence immediately dominating my small apartment. I shouldn't be here. Probably not. And yet I couldn't stay away. We stood in my living room, the city lights from my window painting everything in shades of blue and silver. His eyes traveled over my space, the books stacked on every surface, the plants on the windowsill, the cozy chaos of a life actually lived in. This is so you, he murmured. Warm, real, genuine. He moved closer, fingertips trailing down my arm. Tell me to leave, Isabella, because if you don't, I'm going to kiss you, and if I kiss you, I'm not going to want to stop. I looked up at this dangerous, beautiful, complicated man. I'm not telling you to leave. His mouth found mine, and everything else disappeared. He kissed like he did everything, intensely, completely, consuming. His hands tangled in my hair, settled on my waist, pulled me against him until there was no space left between us. I melted into him, finally allowing myself to feel everything I'd been suppressing for months. You're destroying me, he breathed against my lips. Good, maybe we can destroy each other. He lifted me, and my legs wrapped around his waist as he carried me to the couch. We collapsed together, desperate and reverent in equal measure. I've wanted this, he murmured against my neck. Wanted you, since before I even admitted it to myself. Then stop talking and show me. He pulled back, eyes searching mine. Once we cross this line, there's no going back. You understand that? You'll be mine, and I'll be yours. This isn't casual. I don't do casual. I've never been more certain of anything. Then you're mine, he said fiercely, and I don't share. We stayed tangled together for hours as the city hummed around us. He was demanding and gentle in turns, and I let myself be vulnerable in ways I never had before. Later, as we lay wrapped in each other, city lights creating constellations on my ceiling, he spoke quietly. They're going to talk. Everyone in my world will have opinions about this. Let them talk. It won't be easy, being with me. There are dangers you can't imagine. I turned to face him. I never asked for easy, Dominic. I asked for real. He kissed my forehead. You're braver than most of my soldiers. I'm terrified, but sometimes the best things are terrifying. Like falling in love. My heart stuttered. Is that what this is? I don't know, he admitted, but it feels close enough that I can't tell the difference. I kissed him, putting everything I felt into it. We fell asleep wrapped in each other, two people who had been invisible in different ways, finally seen. Dawn broke through my windows like liquid gold, painting everything in shades of rose and honey. Dominic was still there, still holding me, and something in my chest loosened, a knot I hadn't even realized existed. He hadn't left, hadn't treated this like a transaction. I can feel you thinking, he murmured, eyes still closed. How? Your breathing changed. He opened his eyes, smiling softly. What's going through that brilliant mind? Wondering if this is real, if I'll wake up and discover it was all a dream. He kissed me slowly, thoroughly. Does that feel like a dream? No, it feels like coming home. Then trust it, trust us. His expression grew serious. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine fiercely. You need to understand what that means. I can protect myself. I know, but you don't have to anymore, not alone. The concept of having someone stand beside me was overwhelming. What happens at work? Now everyone knows you're untouchable, that you matter to me. He stroked my hair. But nothing else has to change if you don't want it to. You can keep working, keep your independence. I'm not asking you to give up who you are. What are you asking? Just to let me love you, however that looks. I kissed him again, soft, full of promise. I can do that. The office buzzed with whispers that afternoon. Everyone noticed. Dominic's eyes following me across the room. The way he smiled when I walked past his door. The possessiveness in his posture when any man came near. Let them notice. Let them wonder. He called me into his office, closed the door, and pulled me into his arms. I couldn't wait until tonight, he murmured against my lips. Counting the hours was torture. Your employees will talk. Let them. You're mine, and I'm finished pretending otherwise. Over the following weeks, our relationship became an open secret. Dominic didn't hide me, didn't treat me like something shameful. Instead, he elevated me. In meetings, he sought my opinion. At company dinners, I sat beside him. When his associates tried to dismiss me, he made it unmistakably clear that I was to be respected. But it wasn't without challenges. One evening, standing in his penthouse as the sun set over the Hudson River in spectacular shades of orange and purple, he grew serious. There's something you need to understand, he said quietly, staring out at the city he ruled. My world is dangerous. People will try to use you to get to me, hurt you to hurt me. I'm not afraid. He turned, cupping my face. You should be. I've made enemies, Isabella. Powerful, ruthless enemies who would see destroying you as destroying me. Then we'll face them together. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I met his dark eyes steadily. I'm choosing you, Dominic, all of you, the good, the bad, the dangerous, I'm choosing us. His kiss was desperate, like he was trying to pour all his fear and love into a single gesture. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Maybe not, but you have me anyway. That night, as we lay in his bed with the city lights sparkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he held me close. I never believed in this, he said quietly. Love, partnership, having someone who sees past the monster to the man underneath. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things. We all have darkness, Dominic. The difference is whether we let it consume us or find light to balance it. I traced the lines of his chest. You're my balance. And you're mine. Weeks became months. The whispers at work faded into acceptance. Dominic's men learned to respect me, not because I was his woman, but because I earned it through competence and strength. I didn't become someone I wasn't. He never asked me to. Instead, we built something new together. A relationship founded on mutual respect, fierce attraction, and genuine understanding. One evening, standing in our favorite spot by his windows, as the sun painted the sky in impossible colors, he pulled me close. Remember when you told me you weren't my trophy? I do. You were right, you're not my trophy. He turned me to face him, eyes intense. You're my partner, my equal, the person who makes me want to be better than I am. Dominic. I love you, Isabella. I'm in love with you, completely, irrevocably, dangerously in love with you. Tears pricked my eyes. I love you too. I think I have since that elevator when you finally really saw me. He kissed me as the sun set behind us, as Manhattan transformed from day to night, as our future stretched before us like an unwritten story. What do we do now? I whispered against his lips. Now, his smile was pure joy. Now we live, we love, we build something beautiful in the middle of all this chaos. Together. Always together. And standing there, wrapped in his arms with New York City glittering below us like a promise, I understood something profound. I had spent so long being invisible, thinking silence was survival. But true survival wasn't about hiding. It was about being brave enough to be seen, to be vulnerable, to choose love even when it was dangerous. Dominic Valetti, the most powerful man in Manhattan, had looked past my silence and seen my strength. And I had looked past his danger and seen his heart. We weren't perfect. Our love wasn't safe or simple or easy. But it was real. And in a world full of pretenders, real was everything. So that's my story. The silent woman who became visible to the one man who mattered. Here's something I've been thinking about a lot. Everyone thought my silence was weakness. They saw someone who didn't speak up, who kept to herself, and assumed I was easy to overlook, easy to dismiss. But Dominic saw the truth. He understood that silence can be its own kind of power. I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to know what you think. Do you believe Dominic was right to protect me from his men, even when I insisted I could handle it myself? Was that him being controlling, or was it him showing respect in the only way his world allowed? I've thought about it constantly, and I still don't have a clear answer. And what about me? Do you think I played it too safe during all those months of invisibility? Or was I smart to maintain my distance until I understood exactly what I was getting into? Would you have said yes to that dinner, knowing who Dominic really was, understanding what his world involved? Here's what I learned through everything. Sometimes the most dangerous choice is actually the safest one. I spent 11 months being invisible, convinced I was protecting myself, but I was really just slowly fading away. It took falling for a man like Dominic, someone who operates in shadows, but saw me in the light to understand that being seen is worth every risk. Love isn't supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be real. And real means messy and complicated and sometimes absolutely terrifying. But it also means feeling alive in a way I never did when I was hiding. If you were in Dominic's position, would you have pursued someone who worked for you, knowing it could complicate everything? Or would you have kept your distance to protect them from your world? I think about the choice he made, to be honest about what he wanted instead of pretending I didn't exist, and I wonder if I would have had that same courage. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done in my shoes? In Dominic's? Do you think we made the right choices, or are we headed for disaster? Drop a comment and let me know. I read every single one, and your perspectives always make me think about things differently. And if you want to hear more stories like this, about real love and complicated situations, about people who choose each other despite impossible odds, hit that subscribe button. I share these stories because I believe we all deserve to feel seen, to feel chosen, to feel like we matter to someone. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for seeing me the way Dominic did. It means more than you know. The whispers continued at work. Let them whisper. Dominic's enemies still lurked in shadows. Let them lurk. Our world was complicated and dangerous and unpredictable. But we faced it together. The silent employee and the man who ruled an empire. The woman who mastered invisibility and the man who learned to truly see. We chose each other. Every single day, we chose each other. And that choice, that commitment, that fierce and unshakable love, was the most powerful thing either of us had ever known. Outside, the city lights flickered on one by one, millions of stories unfolding in the darkness. This was ours. Messy and beautiful, and absolutely worth fighting for. I wasn't invisible anymore. And I never wanted to be again. Because being seen by him, loving him, being loved by him, was better than any safety silence had ever offered. This was my story, our story. And it was only just beginning.